Good morning again. So I just briefly recorded, I think it was about a 15-minute, whatever I'll call these things, screencasts, N+1s. And in that we just did a couple of small fixes to Collectable, just to make it look a bit nicer. And so at this stage, Collectable, it looks, it's still Windows Phone only. It tells you what the latest thing you've collected is. It still allows you to add things. Location works. And it gives you a list of them. So what I'd like to do is, obviously at the moment this is a bit ugly, so for n equals 14 what I want to do is I would like to add some images to this. So we've got choices with images about whether or not we're going to put the images in the database, because we could open up a byte array and put them in the database, or whether we're going to just use the file system, or we could actually also look at whether we use a cloud based system or something. For this app, given that we are just going to concentrate on local phone functionality, and given that we really don't need any relational properties of the pictures, I'm actually going to use the local file system, and that's what I like to use. But you can, if you want to, store it in the database. There's probably not much difference in terms of overhead. It's just that here, it's its own blob, so I'm going to put it in its own blob space, which is the file system, which is designed to use it. So with that said, let's kick into the code. And again, all I'm going to do is start from the same code as I just finished, but I've moved it into a part 3. That's where I'm going to start diving into it. So what I need to do is, within the add view model, within this guy, which already has quite a lot of functionality, let me just fix a couple of code improvements that ReSharp is telling me about. But within the add view model, which hopefully you can see, I would like to collect some pictures. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another plugin. So I'm going to manage NuGet, and I'm going to go to MVVM Cross, and I'm going to pull, oops, it's Chris. I'm going to pull in pictures. So let me just put picture in. Whoops, oicture, I'm really not typing well. Picture in. And one of the plugins that's available is the Picture Chooser plugin. So I'm going to choose that. And it's going to download and install. And once I've done that, then one of the things that's available to me in the add view constructor is there is an IMVX Picture Chooser task that I can get hold of. No, it's not IMVPX Picture Chooser task. Let me get it right. And then obviously I can use ReSharper to pull the namespace for that in. And the Picture Chooser task enables me to use like the camera and the library functionality. So let me just take that and I'll make it into a stored private member as well. Whilst it's called a task, you can use it more than once, the way this is defined. So it's not a one-off thing. So you could call it to get a picture and then call it again to get another picture. So let's just set that as a private field. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a way of getting hold of that Picture Chooser task and getting a picture. So to do that, what I'm going to do, excuse me while I just rearrange my desk slightly so I can type better. But to do that, what I'd like to do is I would like to have a command. So let's come down to the bottom of this class. And obviously we've got this to do already marked here, so let's use this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a command, and I'll use this long-winded form of command. It's my snippet. It is the correct way of doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an add picture command, and we're going to do add picture command, and we're going to do add picture. So we get these things together as add picture, add picture, add picture. And what we'd like to do is when the user calls add picture, we're going to get hold of our Picture Chooser task. And we're going to, so there are two methods of real interest on here. Let's see if I can zoom in for you. Oops, didn't do that very well. Let me try to do that again. There are two methods. The first is choose picture from library, which goes off and creates and gets it from the gallery of pictures. And the second is to take a picture using the camera. So because we're on the emulator, the simulator, I'm actually going to choose the first one of those. And it's just because you can't create very nice pictures using the simulator. think, can I do it any other way? No, I'm gonna choose the picture. It's gonna just be ugly pictures, but I'll choose the camera because that's the scenario we're most interested in. And then it's asking me what my max pixel dimension is. And you know, we're on a phone and we kind of know this at the moment, so I'm just going to choose quite a small one. I'm going to hard code it as 400. In perhaps a more full app, you might want to do something more complicated here. Perhaps you'd want to find out what the phone is, or perhaps your service has got certain demands. You might also want to take quite a large picture and then in your own code resize it. That's perfectly possible to do. But here I'm just going to choose 400 as a max pixel dimension. I then get a max quality. And these are JPEGs that are going to be returned, so anything around 90 to 95 is a good quality, so I'll choose 95. And then there are these two methods for action for a stream, which is what you get called back on if there is a picture available. So I'll call that method on picture. And then there's an action for what happens when the picture taking gets cancelled. And for that, I'm just going to pass in an empty action, because I don't really mind about cancellations. Yeah, I'll just pass in nothing to do. So that's just an empty action, nothing to actually do when the user cancels the picture taking. Perhaps hits back or something. So let's create on picture, and in the on picture we get called with a stream. So we need to choose what we're going to do with that stream. And to start with, what I think I'd like to do is I'd just like to capture it as some bytes. Yeah. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture it as a bytes, and only if the user hits save am I actually going to save it onto disk. So let's do this, and let's so we're going to have a property which is going to be a byte array, and these are picture bytes. Obviously, if you're going to choose very large images, you don't want to do this because the picture bytes might be quite large. Yeah, if you start getting a 12 megapixel image or a 41 megapixel image maybe. So that's going to be our picture bytes. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to copy them in there. So to do that, I'm just going to get a memory stream. So var memory stream equals new memory stream. I'm going to do stream.copy2 stream.copy2 memory stream, which will copy everything from the camera into our stream, and then I'm going to do picture bytes equals memory stream dot to array. So that gets me my my picture bytes out into this property. So let's just see whether or not we can get this hooked up to the UI as it is. We're not saving these bytes or anything at the moment. I'm doing anything too exciting. So let's do this. So we've got an add picture command we know about. And we've got some picture bytes we know about. And let me just also get rid of this image path. We know that we have to set the image path, but we'll do that shortly. So we've got these picture bytes, we've got on picture. Let's see what we can do. So we are going to go to our add view. And we know in our XAML here that we've got these fields. And what we want to do is we want to add in a picture area. So let's do that. And I'm going to go to the to this code and do it. Sorry, not talking very well at the moment. But what I'll do is just above location, I'm going to put in an image, and its height is going to be let's call it 150 high, and its width is going to be 150 as well. And we will then we need to bind it, so we need its source equal to binding of those picture bytes. This won't work as it is, don't worry, we're not going to leave it quite as that. And because the picture bytes aren't a valid source for the image, normally you pass it a URL or something, so we will have to provide a converter for that. So I'll even put in a converter equals, and then I'll put in question mark, question mark, question mark, because we need to do something about that. Yeah. So that's picture bytes. But we also would like a button saying, to get the picture. So I'll add that as well. And so this is a button whose content is going to be take picture. And whose command, when you click it, is going to be bound to that add picture command. So this just leaves us at this stage with how, what converter are we going to apply here? And the answer is I'm going to cheat. So there is a project already available in the samples folder, and this project is called Picture Taking. And within that we do actually provide a Windows Phone sample, and within that we do provide a native converter, and this native converter, as you can see, is like this, and it uses a converter that's actually within the plugin, so it's within the Picture Chooser plugin. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this very same class, as you can see, and I'm going to copy it across into Phone. So it's not a very complicated one, but I do cheat occasionally, and I do actually reuse code. So here's a value converters. I'm going to add a class 1, and I'm just going to paste that in, and it will do these things, and hopefully. Okay, so I haven't added my new plugin to this guy, so it hasn't realized it yet. So I want MVVM cross picture. Bring it back. My mouse is misbehaving. So we're going to install the picture plugin to the UI as well, and that should then mean that this is now available. So we're just installing this into here, and let me rename the file because it's bad file naming. And then what I need to do is I need to add that to the XAML. So I'll just add it as a converter. Oops, wrong place. So the converter is going to be a native in-memory image value converter, a long name. And I'll give it as a shorter name, bytes to image. And then when we've done that, we can just use this key and use this static resource in our XML. So let's just see whether or not we can get this working. And what I'll do is I'll put that in, and I will put in, so it's going to be a static resource, and it's called bytes to image. So at this stage, let's see whether or not we can actually get this working. So if we just run up our phone app, let's do that. And when we add something now, then we have this take picture method. So if we hit take picture, what we do is we get taken to the camera, and you can see the camera is not very exciting on this. I wonder if I can actually get the webcam to work or anything. Okay, so the front facing camera shows you this. It's not very exciting. This is a simulated picture, if you like. And we'll just hit the camera button. Do we like the picture? Yes, it's beautiful. We get it back, and you can see this is the picture that's being taken for us by the simulator. So that's the flow for taking a picture working. If I just change the view model so that instead of using that take picture, it gets one from a from the thing. So you can see at the moment we're using take picture. If I replace that with the choose library, then we'll get a bit nicer. Choose picture from library, then we will get a bit nicer picture from the simulator. So let me just do that very quickly. But obviously we're not really looking to look in the gallery. We really, in our real app, want to use the camera. So this is just for testing at the moment. We take a picture, it takes us to here, and we can choose one of these sample pictures. So, if we like a bike, we can have a bike, and then that comes back resized for us. So that's our take picture functionality, and obviously we can go around that loop several times and choose which picture we like. Perhaps we'd also want to pull in visibility, so we hide the take picture button, but for now that's okay. So that's done, but now we need to go to the next stage, because obviously at the moment if we do this and we say, nice flower is what we've collected, and we hit OK, then actually we're not getting it saved because we've only done it as bytes at the moment. So let's do this next stage. And what we'd like to do in this next stage is we would like to, so I'll leave it as choose picture, but we know that, to do, put this back to take picture. So what we'd like to do in this next stage is we would like to save these picture bytes when the user hits add. So let's do this, and what we're going to do is here yeah, we're going to actually get the image path. So what we could do is we could just do it inline here, and what we'll do is we will do generate image path. Obviously the user might not have an image, that's fair enough, in which case maybe we should use a default one, or maybe we should not worry about it. But actually let's add to validate and say that you can only continue if there are picture bytes. So if picture bytes equals null, return false. So now a user cannot add anything to their collection unless they've got a picture. Yeah, which you might want to change the user flow so that that's actually more enforced. But that's kind of more in your UI design than your UX design. So we want to generate the image path, so let's create that method. And obviously it returns a string, and what it's going to do is we want to save it to file. Now to save to file, we again need another plugin. So let's add it. So let's go to NuGet. And this plugin is called the MVVM Cross File plugin. So we find it, we install it. And then what this, obviously again, we're going to need to do is we would like to get hold of the file plugin in our constructor. So let me start rearranging this so it uses multiple lines. Just so you can see everything that's in this constructor, particularly when I'm on large font. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another of these plugins here. You can add as many as you need. And we will add the IMVX file store. And again we will ask for that to be initialized from the constructor. And again, actually I'm just going to tidy up code here. Very bad of me during these recordings, but I like these things to all be read only. So we've got file store, that's going to be set up for us, and we need to save it. So here in our generate image path, how are we going to generate a file name? Well, let's just do the obvious things that we could do, which is a GUID. So via random file name equals GUID.newGUID.toString, and I'll pass in n to that, which just means it'll kind of do it without those curly braces. So I'll then call it image plus, and I'll give it a .jpeg just so that everyone knows it's .jpeg. So that's our random file name. You might want to put it into a folder, so let's say that we're always going to put it into the images folder, because that's a good name for this folder. So what I'll do is so we've got a file store, and it's got all these methods on file store that you'd kind of expect. Be a bit careful of using file store on WinRT because some of these methods aren't fully implemented at the moment. But on Windows Phone and on Android and iOS, we've got pretty good implementations for these guys. So here's our methods, and one of them is folder exists. So let's do that. So let's do ensure folder exists, and we'll call it images. And then when we've done that, what we'd like to do is we'd like to save the file. So let's do it. So we're going to file store write file, and this has got a number of overrides, as you can see. Hopefully you can see those. It's got a path which takes a stream. It's got a path or an action to a stream. It's got a path which takes a byte array, essentially an enumerable of bytes, and it's got a path which allows you to save strings. If you need more than that, then obviously you can take a look at the source code for the plugin. You can write your own. You can extend it. But those should be enough to get you going in most apps, I think. So what we're going to do is our path is going to be we're going to have var path is going to be images. Obviously you'd normally use constant strings here plus random file name. Yeah, and in fact you shouldn't really use a hyphen like that. What you should do is you should do underscore file store dot path combine, because on different operating systems a forward slash might not work for you. So there we get as our path, and then we can write to that path. So we do a write file path, and what we pass into the path is our picture bytes. Again, we should probably check here, that if this should never get called according to our logic already, but if it's null, then let's return null, because we obviously don't have anything we can save. And then when we've done that, that should just work. So we should then be able to return path. Now there are things here like checking that we have disk space and things, but that's outside the scope of this particular tutorial. You know, at the moment we're just showing, you know, a basic app which is GPS and files and images and SQLite databases, and so I'm just going to push ahead with that without worrying too much about the error checking side of things. If you're building a real app, you have to worry about those things. So that's going to write our file and return the path, and at that point we should, I can leave that to do there, we should then get the image path stored in our database. So if that's stored in our database, how do we use it? And so let's go back to home view. And what we've got in home view at the moment is, you know, we've got this fixed image which is just using the application icon, and we'd like it to use the actual latest icon. So let's try and change that. So what we'd like is we would like a binding to the latest dot, I think it's called image path. Yeah, but that's going to be a path which is going to be in isolated storage. And one of the things you'll know if you've done any Windows Phone programming is image itself doesn't know about isolated storage. So what you have to do is we're going to have to provide another converter. So let's do that. Converter equals, and what we're going to have to do is we are going to have to provide a static resource and a name for that converter. So how do we find out about this converter? Well, this is a Windows Phone only problem, and so the answer is we go to Stack Overflow, or we go to the MSDN, create.msdn.com, or wherever it's moved to, and we find the answer. And one of the answers that comes back is this guy. This is j2i.net, nothing at all and everything in general, and they've come out with a converter that we could just use. So I'm just going to take this code off the internet. Always a dangerous thing to do. I'll probably have to edit it a little bit, and I will, in value converters, add a new class, class 1. This code is available, it says, under kind of Creative Commons with attribute, so I'm going to have to add that attribute. Obviously there's a few things to sort out. In fact, I don't actually like this value converter, so let me change it a little bit. Perhaps I don't like it as much as I thought I did. So it's got this private static. No, that's horrible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy its principle, but not its actual implementation here. So it's a value converter. It's a normal thing. But what I'd like it to do instead is I'd like it to use our file store. So let me just do a manage NuGet, and again I want to add to the UI project this time. I want to add the file plugin. So let me add it. Off it goes and installs. And so what I'd like to do is in my converter, maybe I shouldn't have ever looked at this. In my converter, and this is not an MVX converter. This is a native value converter that we're doing here. So it's not going to be cross-platform in any way. What I'd like to do is I would like to test if value is null. And if value is null, I'm going to return null because I don't really want an image. You could return something safe here, perhaps, you know, the application icon or something, but I'm just going to return a blank space. If the value is not string, then I'll return null because I don't know what on earth has been passed to me. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that I've been passed a valid path and I'm going to use it. So what I'm going to do here is the other form of how to get hold of a plugin, or how to get hold of an IOC object, one of these kind of dynamic objects, and that's to use the mvx.resolve functionality. And what I'd like to do here is I'd like to get hold of the file plugin. So let's do it. IVMVX file store. And that should return to me the file store. And once I've got that, I should be able to use file store.read. Try read binary file, that sounds pretty good. And that takes a path and returns the byte array. So our path is going to be string value, and our byte array we need to return as an out parameter, so let's do it. So or we could use the other form. Let's use the other form. So the other form that's there is a read method. So this is a method that takes a string and returns a bool. So let's do this in line. Yeah, Yeah, so we know it's going to return true because we like to return true from these things because it's full. And what this is going to do is it's going to actually read that stream into a bitmap. So let me just see how they did it in this sample. What they did was they had a bitmap which set the source from the file, which was the file that was opened. Okay, that seems reasonable enough. So we will create a bitmap image like this. Yeah. Var bitmap bm.setSource, and the source takes a stream. Perfect. Yeah, and I don't know whether there's any other things I need to do there about setting it up so it doesn't delay or anything like that, but that seems reasonable. So here's our bitmap, and so what I'd like to do is I'd like to put the bitmap there outside of this particular scope, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to return bm. Yeah, and that should hopefully mean that as our entire file path to image converter, we're actually going to return the bitmap. Let's see whether or not this works. So we're going to take our file path to image, and again we have to do this fiddly bit for the XAML where we import it. So we're going to have a file path to image, and we'll call this xkey equals file path to image. And this is just because the native control in Windows Phone doesn't know about isolated storage. And that then gives us our method in home view, where we've got this question mark, question mark, question mark. We can put the file path to image. So in theory now we've written everything. Let's see whether or not we've made any mistakes. And we should now be able to go to debug start new, and it should pull up our UI. And obviously to start with we don't have a nice flower because we didn't take the picture correctly. And if we want to add something though, let's take the picture first. So this is going to be a football picture. That's what I'm collecting. So I've got a football. You know, maybe we'll put some notes in saying it was round. And then when we hit OK, that code that we wrote a minute or two ago should come through. And what we get is we get the entire flow through, and it's gone into the file system and to the database, and we now have an actual kind of more better display on the front page. Obviously we don't have anything in the list at the moment, so let's go down into the list and see whether we can improve that as well. So let's snap out of this a second and Shift F5 to come out. So we quite like the same sort of image functionality as we've got here, and the same sort of layout indeed in the list page. So let's go to list view model. Let's take a look, sorry, list view. Let's take a look at what it's got here. And at the moment for our list, I just come out of here and I do a look at the list. Then the list for its data template just has this caption. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to replace it with something that's going to be the stack panel. It's probably better not to use a stack panel. It would probably be better to use a grid. So let's do that as well. And we're just going to use exactly the same sort of thing, but with grid. So let's do it. So we're going to replace the stack panel here with a grid, and the grid's going to have two columns this time, column definitions, and the first one is going to be width equals auto, and the second one's going to be star. And then what we'll do is the image is going to go in the first grid, and we'll add some margin to it as well because we don't want it too close. So it's going to be a 12, and this is grid.row, is grid.column equals 0, and then the text for the caption is going to go in the second column. So that's grid.column equals 1, and we'll make the font size a bit bigger. We'll make it 36. Obviously, again, you'd use styles to these sorts of things. So that should work. We could also open it up if you wanted to in Blend, and we could do the design time data. I think I showed that in an earlier N+1, so we won't do that now. But now when we run this up, hopefully we should see that we now get a better display, as long as I didn't mess up my XAML. So we've got our front page. When we go to the list, then the football has it. The others, when we save them, we didn't save them with images, so that's no good. So let's add another one, and this one's going to be Again, we've only got limited things. Nice waterfall. So we've got that, we've taken the picture, we could add notes, it knows where the location is, and we've got waterfall there, and if we go to the list you can see it's now working. So that's adding 2 new plugins to the mix during this talk. So we've added in the picture chooser plugin, and we showed it working first of all with a camera, which doesn't work very well in the simulator. And then we also showed it working with the gallery, which works a bit neater in the simulator. And having done that, we then moved to actually displaying the images that have been saved on disk. So actually, no, there was also the plugin for the file, and we showed how to save things onto disk. And then we moved from there into looking at displaying those images, and we used a couple of value converters, for which we did use source that was kind of on the internet to try and look at it, and we did use existing source from MVX. So I went quite quickly again, I always do, and I hope that was vaguely comprehensible to you, and you can see that our app is beginning to take a bit more shape. You can see we've got better add functionality, we've got better list functionality, and we've also got our nice latest here as well. So I will return again. And I think what I'd like to do next is I'd like to look at editing the functionality, editing these things, because at the moment there's no detail view through, you can't delete any of them. But then once I've done that, we are almost ready to go on to some of the other platforms. So hopefully there'll be one more short one on Windows Phone and on portable classes, and then I'll dive into porting this to iOS and porting this to Android. So I hope this is okay with you. I hope you're enjoying Collectable, and I'll be back shortly.